One of the many reasons I love the Flash so much is that despite all the pain, all the trauma, all that he lost, he still puts on that smile with that bright red suit and chooses to be the hero that Reverse Flash could never be. When looking at a hero's journey, the focus would obviously be on our hero that we follow. We get to see his tragic past, his trauma that he experienced, that eventually turns him into the hero that we all know and love today. And the Flash is no different. We get to see how from a young age he experienced something so horrible that no one should experience in any age. Not only did his mom get taken away from him, but so did his dad. His dad is now imprisoned for a crime he never committed. Barry now has to grow up without a mother who was mysteriously murdered and a father wrongfully accused for it. From even a young age, Barry never gave up on his dad and always tried to prove his innocence. Imagine that type of childhood where your focus isn't on living out your youth, but it's spent grieving for your mom's murder and on trying to prove your father's innocence. And the people around him chalked it up to a kid being traumatized, fantasizing, or coping with the horrible event of what his father did. But what about Henry himself? What about his point of view? The comic or whatever storyline that we get our information from is called The Flash and will obviously look at things from his perspective. Our focus has always been about how Barry is feeling during this, but I truly believe that Henry is one of those characters that deserve to be talked about more, and that his point of view during all of this deserves more focus. Depending on which interpretation we take our version of Henry, there will obviously be differences. Not many know this, but in the original stories, pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths, Barry's parents never die. They even outlive him after he sacrificed himself in Crisis on Infinite Earths. He had a normal childhood and became a hero simply out of good-natured desire. But after the Flash rebirth in 2009, Jeff Johns wrote a much darker origin for our hero which retcons the previous one. He wrote the story of how Reverse Flash went back in time and murdered Nora Allen while also framing his dad for her murder, just to make sure Barry lived a long life of trauma. Some people actually hate this retcon and think it's just a cliche story of a hero who lost his parents. While it does have some cliche aspects to it, I think it adds a lot more depth to the characters and calls for much deeper and interesting storytelling. Now we have a lot more to talk about when it comes to Barry's early years before becoming the Flash. People say it sucks that the reason Barry becomes the Flash is because of what happens to his parents, making it a cliche origin story when that is simply not true. Barry would become the Flash regardless of what happened, and in the original story, pre-Crisis proves that. He becomes the Flash with or without what Reverse Flash did. Let me ask you this, how did Barry get his powers? Barry was working late as a forensic scientist when a bolt of lightning crashed through his laboratory window. That event happens no matter what. The retcon simply provides a reason to why Barry gets into forensics, which eventually gets him to be struck by lightning, therefore becoming the Flash, not why he became the Flash. Barry becomes the Flash no matter what. In the original story, he was just a police chemist and a forensic scientist for the police department without a specific reason. And I think him getting into science and forensics because of wanting to prove his father's innocence is a much more interesting character motivation than simply no reason at all. And now we have much more to talk about on how personal the rivalry between Flash and Reverse Flash really is. This makes the Reverse Flash the biggest unpredictable menace and rival to Barry. He was still a menace before, let's not forget that he killed Iris because she refused to leave Barry for him by vibrating his hands through her brain. But now, he would stop at nothing to make Barry's life a living nightmare. Nothing is off limits. Even killing a little boy's mom and sentencing his father into prison is on the table. This makes how paranoid and terrified Barry was at what Thawne may do next in 2016's Flash Rebirth makes so much sense. That is terrifying for a villain because of how unpredictable he has become. And we also have a lot more to talk about when it comes to Barry's relationship with his dad. There are different versions of Henry Allen aside from the Henry Allen before Crisis. The thing that is in common with them is that he is in prison for being wrongfully accused for murdering his wife. And we mostly see him in prison when Barry comes to visit him. What happens before or after is where the differences come from. Before the events of Flashpoint in the Flash Rebirth, he simply dies of natural causes in prison. But in the New 52, he finally gets exonerated after Barry caught the Reverse Flash and proved his dad's innocence. The New 52 also adds the idea of Henry and Nora being on the verge of divorce before Nora was murdered. Still, that doesn't mean Henry never loved his wife. The divorce papers were submitted by Nora, not Henry. This is still a man who lost the love of his life. That version of Harry carries on into 2016's Rebirth, where we see him as a recurring character. When you look at the comic versions of Henry Allen, not included the one before Crisis, it does show us how tragic Henry's life really is. Like dying of natural causes before Flashpoint, that is the absolute definition of a tragic ending. Spending your whole life caged for a crime you didn't commit and taking your last breath without ever getting justice. He does not get a happy ending at all. But then seeing him finally get exonerated in the New 52 after Barry catches Reverse Flash gives you that massive sigh of relief. Because after many years, the man finally gets the justice he deserves. If it's the comics or the live-action versions, which I will get to later, Henry Allen is the ultimate anchor for Barry. A man who gets stripped of his freedom, his wife, and his reputation, but still manages to be the emotional backbone that inspires the Flash to be the best version of himself. Now let's answer the title of the video. Why do I think Henry Allen is the most tragic character in the Flash universe? Well, as I said earlier, let's put ourselves in his shoes. Let's take a look at things from his perspective. You are a doctor with a loving wife and a son that you love, living an average happy life when all of that is taken away from you because of something you can't even begin to understand. Henry wasn't some hero or soldier that will eventually turn into a superhero to save lives, no. He was just a regular man who will have a regular human life. He lost his life in a single night because of forces beyond his understanding. How do you even begin to explain that to a judge? Not only was the woman you love murdered in cold blood, but you are also framed for it. Everyone thinks you did this horrible thing that you can't even begin to imagine yourself doing. From the perspective of everyone around him, whether it's the justice system or anyone who knew him personally, they largely accepted that he was guilty. He's forced to watch his reputation crumble, despite knowing he's innocent. Not only that, but you also have to worry about your son. How is he feeling through all of this? Does my son truly believe I did this horrible thing? How is he going to live without a father? I would argue this is Henry's greatest fear. But knowing Barry now has lost both his parents in one night, one murdered and one sent to prison, is an entirely different kind of pain. Throughout Flash stories, Henry constantly worries about Barry's future more than his own suffering, which is what a true caring father would do. Just imagine all these thoughts when you are alone, on the way to jail, on the way to court, alone in your cell, replaying every second of every choice. If I had done something different, this may have been avoided. It's completely human to replay moments and wonder whether something could have been done differently to avoid what happened. Calling sooner, getting back home sooner, being more careful, sensing something is wrong, being always ready for something like this to happen. I know this because of something called survivor's guilt, and it perfectly applies to Henry's situation. What is my son doing right now? He is still a child. He shouldn't have witnessed something like that. Is he getting proper care? Is he being fed? Barry witnessed the worst night of his life as a child, and his father has no control over how his son is feeling, or how his son is being raised. Who comforts him? How is he coping with the trauma? Not being there to protect your child as a parent must be one of the most tragic parts of Henry's imprisonment. Anyone in his position would give up, but the one thing that always gave him hope is that his own son never believed the lies. He never gave up on his father. This becomes one of the defining aspects of Barry Allen's character. As I said earlier, this is the main character motivation behind Barry getting into science and forensics. He refuses to believe that his dad could ever do something like that. And every visit to Iron Heights, Henry is reminded of that. He is reminded of Barry's resilience. And that resilience and strength is carried over to Henry himself. Seeing how his son views him can be the only source of hope and joy that he has in his life at that point. Barry visiting his father in prison is genuinely one of my favorite panels or scenes or whatever you may call it. These scenes are some of the most emotional moments because neither of them is focused on themselves. Henry asks Barry how's he doing, while Barry reassures his father he'll never stop fighting for him. Their conversations are driven by genuine care for each other. The emotions that those two can bring out is something unique to the story of The Flash. I genuinely believe that the two are the reason they choose to be the best versions of themselves. Henry wants to show his son how strong he is and that Barry shouldn't worry about him. He truly wants Barry to live out his life the best he can, and that he shouldn't let this tragedy define him. Henry never wants Barry's life to be consumed by revenge or obsession. Instead, he encourages him to live out his life to become a good man, and to build himself a life beyond these prison walls. He is, after all, imprisoned. He can't do much. His strength in this situation can never be physical. It's exclusively emotional strength. Even after losing everything, he refuses to let hatred define who he is. And Barry wants to show Henry that he would never give up on him, that his dad matters, that he will stop at nothing to figure out what happened, and he will free his dad from this place. Barry's determination to uncover the truth isn't driven by revenge alone. It's driven by care for his father. Barry time and time again shows his father he never gives up, giving Barry the strength he needs to keep going. And Henry's belief in Barry gives his son the strength to keep moving forward. In many ways, they spend years saving each other emotionally long before Barry can save his father physically as the Flash. My personal favorite version of Henry Allen is the CW's version. I truly believe everything I said applies to John Wesley Shipp's performance and how well he was written. This might be unfair to every single version of Henry because the CW version gets the most screen time. After all, every live-action version of Henry is inspired heavily by the New 52 one. But there is a major difference between them. In the New 52, Thawne didn't just kill Nora and frame Henry for it, but Thawne forced Henry to pretend like the lies were true, like he actually killed Nora. He had to pretend to be guilty, or Thawne threatened to come back and kill Barry or harm him in any way. So Henry in the New 52 having to tell Barry to let go, or move on, or to stop visiting is literally him protecting Barry from any physical harm Thawne may do to his son. So yeah, there is a big difference there. Before delving deeper into the John Wesley Shipp version of Henry, let's talk about the other live-action versions. We really only had two other versions, Zack Snyder's Justice League Henry and the Flash movie Henry. Canonically speaking, they are supposed to be the exact same version in the DCEU. It's just different actors. The Zack Snyder Justice League version is pretty accurate. His care for his son exceeds his own. Henry Allen clearly loves his son, but his logic in the prison scene doesn't sit right with me. When Barry says he is studying law to help free him, Henry tells him to stop visiting and move on. Now, telling Barry to let go of the past, that makes sense. You don't want your kid obsessed with a cold case forever. But cutting Barry off completely, Barry is the only person in the world who believes Henry is innocent. By pushing him away, Henry isn't just isolating himself, he's also taking away Barry's purpose. Henry thinks he's freeing his own son from a burden, but he's actually forcing him into exile, leaving Barry completely alone in the world just to prove a point about moving on. him. We do see him again in the epilogue of the movie where Barry shows his dad he got a job. I really do like this scene. The genuine happiness in his dad's face really shows you how much he really cares about his son. The littlest bit of news about Barry doing well got him this happy and excited. He also sarcastically says, "I taught him nothing he knows," which, if you stop and think about it, it's really heartbreaking. Not being the one to teach your son anything about becoming a man must really hurt as a father. Overall, other than him pushing his son away, I really like this version of Harry. Now let's take a look at the Flash movie. That version of Henry was a part of the best thing to come out of that movie, where Barry figured out he can travel back in time to whenever he wanted, not a few seconds like the Justice League movie. The movie introduced the idea of Henry going to the store to buy some tomato sauce that Nora and Barry forgot to buy. But when Henry went into the store is when the murder happened. Him going into the store to pick up the tomato sauce is the best possible way they have of proving his innocence. All they had was some security footage that was not clear, but Bruce Wayne took the footage and ran it through a program that finally made it clear. But the issue is we still haven't seen his dad's face. He doesn't tilt his head up so the camera can pick his face up. Barry received a call from his dad in Iron Heights, and that's where we get our first look at Henry. He asks about his son, how's he doing, has he gotten out much, which shows he still worries about his son and wishes for him the best possible life. And that is when Barry tells him the news, that his face is not yet visible in the security footage. His dad sees how this case has consumed his life and tells him to just forget about it. He tells him to please finally find a girlfriend so he can move on with his life. Yet again showing how Henry doesn't want Barry to lose himself with a cold case like earlier in the Justice League movie. Henry is willing to stay wrongfully convicted if it means Barry can be free, which got me to think this kind of flips the father-son dynamic. Barry is the one acting like the protector, looking for every possible way to save his dad, while Henry is helpless, relying entirely on his son's efforts. The tragedy forced Barry to grow up way too fast, robbing him of the youth that Henry is desperately begging him to go out and experience. He assures his son and tells him, "I am okay." Then he starts coping by saying, "It's probably easy for me to still be here than out there with a world without your mom," showing how much Henry has given up, which is actually pretty heartbreaking to see how much in his head he has been this whole time, to the point where he would prefer prison than the outside world. He goes on to say, "At least in here I can imagine she's alive." This showcases how this tragedy alongside prison really messed him up. He has gotten so accustomed to prison that he thinks the outside world is a prison of its own without the love of his life. Please don't forget that during all of this, Barry is listening. As a son, to see how given up your father is and not being able to help him must be one of the worst things to experience as a son. Mid-call, Barry visits their old home, and his dad starts reminiscing on the old days where they were all a family together, which transitions beautifully from reality into memory. We get to see how happy the family was before the tragedy, and then it happened. Right as Henry came back from the store, Henry finds his wife stabbed. And not only that, he has to be strong for his son in this moment. He has to worry about how Barry is feeling during this. And that's when it transitions again from memory back into reality, where we go back to the call they were on. Henry tells Barry not to worry, and then the call cuts. And that's when Barry gets filled with so much emotion, to the point he runs but doesn't stop. So much so, he figured out he can time travel to whenever he wanted, as I said earlier. Wow, that was really well done in an awful movie. I'm not even kidding when I say that was the best part in that movie. The emotions that make Barry doing something as drastic as going back in time to save his mom is that more impactful. That sequence did so much for both Henry and Barry. It showed how consumed Barry has been through this, pulling out all the stops when it comes to freeing his dad out of prison. And it showed how concerned Henry was about this case preventing Barry from living out his life. After the events of this awful movie, Barry restored the timeline but with a twist. He returned the tomato sauce but moved the tomato sauce to the upper shelf so his dad would lift his head up, making his face visible to the camera. Seeing the genuine happiness and relief in both Barry and Henry was pretty heartwarming. After all this time, finally, Henry's name has been cleared and he's a free man again. And Barry was finally able to help his father, making this another great scene in a horrible movie. Which I don't know if you haven't realized, but this movie is only good when Henry is involved. Overall, again, aside from Henry pushing his son away, I thought the DCEU Henry was a pretty good version. Now it is time to delve deeper into my favorite version of Henry Allen. But before doing that, if you've been enjoying this video so far, I would appreciate your support by liking and subscribing. We are really close to 1,000 subscribers. Back to it. I love this version of Henry so much that I didn't know what to start with, but I will start with the amazing performance of John Wesley Shipp. The emotions that man can bring out of us, the viewers, and Grant Gustin is unmatched. Just look at Grant during this scene.
Barry. Me.
I am not kidding when I say every time I saw Henry Allen on screen, I got emotional to the point of tearing up, and my good friend the Arkham can attest to that.
Yeah guys, I can confirm MRJ is a crybaby.
The genuine love, care, and pride I see in his eyes when he looks at Barry is something that just feels so real to me, and is something that I only felt with this version of Henry way more than the other versions. First time we laid eyes on him was in the beginning of the first ever episode of the show, when it showed how intact and happy this family was, showing how both Barry's parents were a huge emotional backbone for him. And then it cuts to later in that same night, where Barry is awakened by a startling noise. Both Henry and Barry arrive to the living room, where they see Nora in the middle of red and yellow electricity. First thing Henry does, he tells Barry to run, which is what a true parent does. He makes sure his son is safe first before doing anything. Later in that same episode, we see what happened next. Barry, out of nowhere, was 20 blocks away from their home, and when he came running back, he came to a swarm of police surrounding his house, with his dad also being arrested. Henry was screaming out, "I swear to God, I did not do this," trying to plead with the officers to believe him. And when he sees Barry, what does he do? He tells him to stay away from the house and asks what is going to happen to his son. Again, caring more about his son than his own future and reputation, showing genuine fear and concern for Barry's well-being and future, fearing the horrible thing that he may see in that house. This is something that is going to be repeated a lot during this video, but always, Henry Allen is always a father first, whatever else does not matter. He does not want his son to look at his mother's dead corpse. Which, my god, the show really did delve deep into how deep and dark this tragedy really is. The show seriously pulled out all the stops with making this night the most emotional, vocal night in the Flash's life, and how Henry seriously suffered from it. Later in the episode, we finally get to see Henry in the modern day, where Barry comes to visit him. Something the show didn't touch on, but when Barry got hit by lightning, he was in a coma for 9 months. I just can't imagine the fear and concern Henry had during this time. First of all, his son was struck by lightning. That alone is terrifying. Being hit by lightning is not something that people usually survive from, and even if they do survive, there will be crazy side effects. Being in prison and hearing that, not being able to see your son, hearing about how it happened, is my son going to be okay? So many questions, so much worry, so many thoughts running through your head about your son who is in a coma, while being in a jail cell unable to do anything about it. That must have been hell for Henry. Again, as I said earlier, just the emotions. Look at that look of love and pride when he sees Barry. I cannot stop glazing the acting enough, but he really did knock it out of the park with this role. Barry now has powers, he has become the Flash, but is yet to tell his father about it. His father doesn't know he's the Flash yet. He tells his dad he's been in a fight, which is sort of Barry's way of telling his dad that he has beaten his first ever metahuman as the Flash. And what does Henry do? Does he tell Barry to stop fighting? Why are you doing this? No, he asks Barry if he has won. Barry says yes, and look at that look of pride and joy. I can feel this man's love for his son through that glass and through the screen every time I saw him. Barry reassures his dad by saying, "I know you didn't kill Mom." Barry is seriously concerned that his dad thinks that, and Henry says, "You believing that is all I need." Which, remember what I said in the beginning of the video? Both Henry and Barry are the reason for why they want to be the best versions of themselves. And this scene embodies that. Barry assures his dad he would never believe he would do something so horrible, and Henry reassures him that that is all he needs. After Barry got these powers, he is now more confident than ever when it comes to catching the man in yellow. With that confidence, he tells his dad that he won't be in here for much longer, that whoever did this to us will face justice. And Henry, as always, as the father who cares about his son, does the same thing the other versions of Henry we mentioned have done. He tells Barry to stop. He tells him to not let this consume his life further. He tells him to let go, to live his life. And Barry again reassures his dad that he is living his life, that he is different now. His friends now have given him new purpose. And by friends, he means the people at Star Labs helping him with his Flash activities. And here is where Barry reveals something heartbreaking. Henry's name now has gone through the mud. His reputation now is that he is this doctor who went insane and killed his wife. And Henry did not want that to ruin Barry's life. So he asked Barry to change his name. Imagine being so ashamed of something you never even did. That is so heartbreaking for so many reasons as a man alone. But Henry does not care about that. All he cares about is what that may do to his son. He is fearing about what that reputation will do for his son's life, on how it will affect him in relationships. Again, all because of something he can never even understand how it happened in the first place. Something you can't rationalize how it happened. But Henry is always a father first. And if something will make my son's life easier, if something like changing his name will help him in any way, he will ask him to do it. But Barry said he's glad he never did that. He wants people to know who his father is. He's proud to be Henry's son. And the scene ends with a thing that this scene has proven, that they love each other.
I love you, son. I love you too, Dad.
By this scene alone, I can prove why I love this version of Henry Allen so much, but we still have a lot more to talk about. His story does not end here. As I said, this version of Henry Allen is the one with the most screen time. They even delved into the initial first days of his imprisonment. During this time, Joe West, the first cop at the scene of the crime, took Barry in as his foster father. And during this time, Barry was not allowed to visit his dad whatsoever. So what did Barry do? He snuck out of the house just so he can see how his father is doing. And the prison actually allowed the visit. Barry went for a hug, but...
Sorry. No physical contact.
Not being able to hug your own son over something you had nothing to do with is just so sad to see. And the show made sure you felt it, but the prison guards actually felt so bad that they allowed it. That's how tragic this is. Even the guards didn't do their job from the sheer emotions that Barry and his dad were provoking. Barry expressed how much he hates Joe for not letting him see his dad, but that's when Henry revealed he is the one who asked Joe not to let Barry see him. He never wants his son to see him in this way, a prisoner, a criminal. Again, time and time again, Henry is a father first. He would absolutely want to see his son, but he's willing to sacrifice that if it meant preserving Barry's youth and innocence. But Henry should know by now, Barry already experienced this trauma. No amount of no visiting will prevent that now. Barry, with his childhood innocence, tries pleading with the guards. He tells them to please let him go, he had nothing to do with this. But Henry embraces his son and tells him that he can't help him right now. He tells him to be strong like the boy him and his mother raised. Yeah, I was crying like a beh during all of this. A man who is ashamed of something he never did, ashamed to the point he doesn't want his son to see him in this state, and a boy who doesn't care, despite whatever state he is in. Whatever cuffs, whatever jumper he's wearing, he will forever be his innocent dad who would never commit anything like this. Yeah, this hit me right in the feels. And that's just a taste of how amazingly this show used Henry Allen and its story. What makes it even more devastating is just how much this single interaction sets up for who Barry becomes. Henry is sitting there in a prison jumpsuit, completely stripped of his freedom and his dignity, but the only thing he cares about is pouring whatever strength he has left into his son. He's telling Barry to be strong, not for his own sake, but because he knows the world is about to be incredibly cruel for this little boy. And Barry is just standing there looking past the prison walls, looking past the guards who are breaking the rules because they can't bear to watch this heartbreak. And all he sees is his hero. It shows you that no matter how much the system tries to label Henry as a monster, Barry's love for him is solid. The show really did not have to go this hard early on, but man, the emotional weight that they gave Henry and Barry's bond in these flashbacks is truly unmatched. Joe West, the foster father of Barry during this whole time, believed the lie. He believed that Henry actually murdered his wife, and even in the first episode we saw Joe scolding Barry for still wanting to prove his dad's innocence. Joe never believed in the impossible, he always chalked it up to a kid coping and fantasizing about how his dad never did it. But after the crazy events, metahumans, Barry himself getting speed, Joe now starts believing in the impossible. Joe now has reopened the case and started looking into possibilities into how both Barry and Henry's description could have happened at that time. And that's where the show showed us Henry being questioned during all of this, to actually see with our own eyes how nobody believed him. Even Joe, the father of Barry's school crush, a man that knows Henry oh so well. To be calling out to a friend and having that friend of yours not defend you during all of this just shows how much of a tragedy this really is for Henry. Nobody believed him, not even the people who knew him personally. All he has is Barry, and all that Barry had at the time was Henry. Later that day, Joe visits Henry. Henry's immediate reaction is, "Why are you here? Is Barry okay?" Yet again, father first, or in this case, wrongfully accused later. After knowing Barry is fine, you can see the bitterness he has towards Joe. A look of disdain. He is clearly very bitter towards Joe for not giving him a chance, for immediately writing him off as a criminal. And that's when Joe confesses how sorry he is, how now he believes him. The case is being reopened by Joe, and you can tell in his demeanor how apologetic and sorry he is. And Henry said, "It doesn't matter that you didn't believe in me, all that matters is that you believed in my son." Father first, wrongfully accused later. The look of shock and joy that was all over Henry's face tells you enough of a story about how he was feeling during all of this. Another testament to the amazing talents of John Wesley Shipp's acting. You can literally see the layers of weight shifting off of Henry's shoulders in real time. For 14 years, this man has been rotting in a cell, completely isolated, knowing that the guy raising his son looks at him like a cold-blooded murderer. That kind of psychological torture would make anyone bitter. And you can see that raw resentment burning in his eyes the second Joe confirmed Barry was okay. But when Henry said, "All that matters is that you believed in my son," it just proves how pure this man's heart really is. He doesn't care about getting an apology for his own ruined life. He doesn't care about the 14 years stolen from him. All that he cares about is that his boy wasn't completely alone, and that Joe actually protected Barry and loved him like his own. The emotional maturity that the show gives Henry for the forgiveness in that one line is why this Henry is my favorite. He is always the perfect example for a man not letting tragedy and unfairness define him. He is resilient to the end, and that's a perfect example for how his son is supposed to be. And with how he's acting in all of these amazing scenes, they are amazing lessons that Barry can learn from. It takes Joe from a place of overwhelming guilt to this beautiful moment of mutual respect between two fathers who just want the best for the same kid. Jesse L. Martin and John Wesley Shipp outdid themselves here, and the show perfectly hits you right in the feels by turning years of built-up animosity into the ultimate dad number one and dad number two bromance. Throughout the show, we see Henry as a recurring character. We see many amazing scenes just like the ones I mentioned. Something that is always repeated in the CW shows is the secret identity reveal. It gets so bad in the later seasons, it's barely a secret identity. It's usually somebody doesn't trust our hero, and in order so they can trust him, he has to reveal his identity. My issue is not with the reasoning, it's how much they reuse that same reasoning throughout the shows. But the one identity reveal that I truly love and makes the most sense to me is the one with his father. In Season 1, Episode 17, Trickster escaped prison and took a hostage with him. And that hostage was indeed Henry Allen. The Flash was able to stop Trickster, but Trickster, being the madman that he is, put a time death trap on Henry's seat. Thankfully, right as the timer hit, is when Barry saved his dad.
You always did look good in red.
Of course I'm gonna tell my dad. Of course I want him to be proud of me. I genuinely believe Barry was not planning on revealing his identity. But seeing how his dad got so excited and happy to be in the presence of the Flash, I think Barry came to the conclusion that this Flash, this guy that you are in awe to be in the presence of, the one that you're so happy to see, is actually your son. And after that, what does Henry do? Does he start scolding Barry? Does he cry like Tommy Merlin about why he kept this a secret from him? Does he start pleading Barry to stop what he's doing out of fear of what might happen to him? No. Pride, love, and joy. He is so proud of his son to be the great hero that he has become. And he made sure his son knew it. You can see it all over his face, his body language, why this made him so happy. The reason I compared him to Tommy Merlin's reaction is because Henry's reaction is the exact opposite of that CW "why did you lie to me" drama. Henry doesn't make Barry's heroic nature about himself or his own hurt feelings. He does not play the victim. Instead, he reacts with so much warmth that it just melts you. When he looks at Barry, he doesn't see a reckless kid putting himself in danger. He sees the man that this tragedy they both went through has forged. A good man. A hero. This is the man who always wanted Barry to be good. And seeing that his son actually grew up to be the Flash, the protector of the city, made him so prideful and happy. It seriously makes the viewer smile out of how much of a beautiful moment this really is. In the case of my emotional ass, it made me tear up. He isn't afraid for Barry because he has absolute unwavering faith in him. The way he embraces the secret with open arms, completely skipping over any anger or resentment, is one of the many reasons why I love Henry Allen. And the CW's depiction of him, it turns what could have been a cliched CW trope into one of the most beautiful and heartwarming moments in the history of the CW. Spoilers ahead, but Dr. Wells is the Reverse Flash. He is the one who caused all of this. He is the one who framed Henry for this horrible murder. He is the sole reason for all the pain and trauma Henry and Barry have experienced all these years. In that same episode, Henry had a few hours to spend as a free man. He met all of Team Flash. Barry at the time knew exactly who Wells was, and was trying to find ways to both stop him and get evidence to prove Henry's innocence.
Thank you for everything that you've done for my son.
Your son is an extraordinary man, Dr. Allen.
For Barry, this had to be absolute torture. Barry already knows that Wells was the man in their home all those years ago, but he has to stand there, swallow his rage, and act normal. He can't say a word because he needs to protect the investigation and get his dad out for good. Watching his innocent dad smile at his mother's killer is just brutal. For Wells, though, it is the ultimate sick power move. He is looking the man he framed right in the eye, gloating in plain sight while pretending to be the good guy. Mind you, throughout all of this, Wells had secret cameras spying on everything that Barry and Team Flash were doing, so he knows that they know. And him looking at Barry like this is just another sick and twisted move to torment Barry further. It's time for the endgame. In the final episode of this season, Wells, Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, finally revealed why this is all happening. In the future, after Reverse Flash learned who the Flash was, he went back in time to that night to kill Barry as a child. He and the Flash were having their most brutal battle yet, and when Barry saved his child self, in frustration and anger, he thought of a way to hurt Barry. What if he suffered a tragedy? A tragedy that would be so huge, Barry wouldn't become the Flash. And so he did it. In anger, he killed the Flash's mom, while also framing his dad for the murder. After he was done, he tried to go back to his time, but he failed. His speed isn't what it used to be. Why is that? Because if Barry doesn't become the Flash, Reverse Flash is never inspired to become a speedster himself. Now Reverse Flash is stuck in this time, unable to go back. He has to create the Flash himself, so he can fix his mistake that he did. So that Thawne can go back to his time, he needs Barry to do one thing. He needs Barry to go back to that night to fix that mistake. He wants Barry to save his mother. Barry is now faced with a big decision. The biggest decision of his life. Does he save his mother? You might think it's an easy choice. Yes, of course I want to save my mom, but saving his mother would mean losing the world he was already in. All the relationship he has formed, all the friends he made, that would all disappear. And I would be doing the exact thing that the one who murdered my mother in the first place wants. But also, saving my mother would save us from all the years of pain and suffering. Saving my mom would make us a happy family again. It would give my dad back his freedom and all the years that he lost. Clearly, there is a lot to think about for Barry right now, so he goes and asks his dad about it. You and I, right now, we would assume that Henry would say yes, of course, save me from all this pain and suffering. Please give me my life back. Please save your mother. Please save my wife. Of course Henry would say that, right?
No. You can't. Dad. I can make it so that night will never have happened. We'll be a family again. We are a family. No, not like this, not without Mom. Barry, there's a natural order to things. Okay, things happen the way they do. We may not know why at the time, but there must always be a reason. Now, I believe that. I've had to believe it. I can save Mom. At what cost? You said time would change. What if it changes you? I don't care. I do. I am in awe of the remarkable man that you are becoming. All the things you've achieved, and not just as the Flash, but you, Barry, your honesty, your heart. You are always a hero. And your mom will be just as proud. And if she had a say in this, if she thought for 1 second that you going back to save her would mean you losing what makes you so special, she would never want that. Barry, what I hope for you, maybe the greatest thing that a father can hope for his son, is that one day you will become a father yourself. And then you will know how much I truly love you.
Allow me to please wipe my tears away. But does anyone really expect anybody in Henry's position to say no to something like that? All the suffering that I have talked about during this video, every horrible thing that both him and Barry have went through, can all be erased. For anyone, it just seems like a no-brainer. Joe himself doesn't like it. Joe really loves Barry and would never want to lose Barry, but to him it's an easy decision. Joe said yes, you have to do it. Of course, go save your mom. But not Henry. Henry's reasoning for saying no is on how this will change Barry. As he said, he is in awe of the man he has become. He is proud of Barry for so many reasons, not just for being the Flash, but for the remarkable man that Barry has become. And if anything that may change that or put that at risk, even something that could remove all the pain that he himself, Henry, has suffered, something that could bring his wife back, something that could bring back all the time that he has lost with Barry, it doesn't matter. He is willing to sacrifice that if it meant preserving the amazing man that he is proud of. Again, I really said it a lot during this video, but always father first. Whatever I am, whatever is going on, comes later. Henry even knows that Barry doesn't get it. How could you say no to something like that? But to help Barry understand, he tells Barry that he hopes he will become a father himself, so that he can understand that whenever your child is born, nothing in this world matters. Everything else, everything that has to do with me will always come second. Everything that has to do with my child will come first. I cannot commend the amazing writing they provided for Henry for this show. Genuinely, a reason to watch this show. He is a character that combines both amazing writing and acting. I cannot glaze the depiction of Henry in the show enough. Barry does actually go back to that night to save his mom, but his future self says no, and... Barry allowed it to happen. It's the right decision to make. If he does save her, Reverse Flash wins, and Barry can lose all the people he loves in the world. And I truly believe that his dad's word about how he shouldn't do it rang in his ears. But if you haven't cried enough, go watch this scene on your own time. It is the scene that actually got me crying like a baby. Hell, I even believe it's the saddest scene in the entirety of the CW. But Barry goes back and Super Flash punches the Jiminy Christmas out of Reverse Flash. And the fight ensues. Eddie Thawne, the ancestor to Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, shot himself in order to save Barry. Reverse Flash is now erased from existence. So much more happens in between and after that, but that's what we need to know for now. The episode ends with Barry attempting to save the world from catastrophe, with his dad seeing the whole thing from his cell. Season 2 started after the aftermath of the huge events of Season 1, but our focus will obviously be on this video's topic. As I said earlier, Reverse Flash was erased from existence. All that Barry would need is a confession from Wells, but that's no longer possible. The man who killed his mother is no longer to be found. How will he prove his dad's innocence? The show really delves deeper in the first episode on how Barry was feeling like a failure, and he can no longer prove his dad's innocence. Barry truly felt lost. But Thawne, with his sick and twisted way, actually cared for Barry, and somewhat felt bad about what happened. He has spent the past 15 years honing and watching his worst enemy grow up into the hero that he made himself. Although he hates him and wanted to destroy his life, he couldn't help but get attached to the man that Barry has become in front of his eyes. He was actually giving Barry a chance to undo all the horrible things that he has done to him in Season 1 by saving his mother. Just in case his plans failed, he had a recording of him confessing to the murder to be sent to Barry.
My name is Harrison Wells. Being of sound mind and body, I freely confess to the murder of Nora Allen in her home on the night of March 18th in the year 2000. I attacked Nora Allen.
Oh my God.
I stabbed her in the chest with a large butcher.
He confessed.
It has finally happened. After years of false imprisonment, after years of Barry trying every possible way to free his dad, it has happened. Henry is a free man. It is so satisfying and heartwarming to see a great man like Henry get his freedom after all these years. After 15 long years, he is finally free, and his name has been cleared of all the evil things that were said about him. At the party of his release, Barry asks Henry that they should look for an apartment for the both of them. Henry just shrugs it off and says, "We'll talk about it tomorrow." And we get to the only thing that I find questionable about this version of Henry. Barry noticed something was off about the way he said tomorrow, and asks, "Are you not planning on sticking around?" And his reasoning for not being around is that he doesn't want to be a hindrance for Barry. He thinks his presence might be a weakness or a distraction that will hinder him from being the best version of himself, the best version of the Flash. And that just does not sit right with me. After all the time that was forcefully taken away from you and your son, don't you want to make up for that lost time? His reasoning is still within character. He thinks that something is going to slow Barry down, and as I keep saying, he is always a father first. If something will harm his son in any way, he is willing to sacrifice whatever may cause that, even if whatever causes the harm can seem good for them. But what I don't get is why he thinks his presence in Barry's life, after finally becoming a free man, would harm Barry in any way. Even if there were some truths to that, as a father, you're supposed to help and uplift your child. He can still inspire him and motivate him while still being around. Just like Joe was all these years, just like Team Flash are doing right now. But he still says that whenever Barry needs him, he will be there straight away. I just can't help but feel bad for Barry. After all this time, after all the fighting to prove your dad's innocence, I finally got my dad out of jail. And instead of spending the rest of our lives making up for that lost time, that won't really be the case. And I just don't really understand Henry's reasoning. That is the only questionable thing that I have when it comes to CW's Henry Allen. He asks Barry to tell him if that will be okay, and Barry does say yes. As much as it hurts Henry to do this, he was more worried about it hurting Barry. But Barry did understand. After all, Henry won't just get used to regular civilization after being isolated for so long in an instant. Him needing time to get used to it does make sense. But saying that him being around will hinder Barry in any way is what I never understood. In episode 6, Zoom, the speed-hungry demon, absolutely destroyed Barry. Not just physically, but emotionally as well. Zoom showed the entire world how he absolutely humiliated the Flash. And understandably so, Barry is not in a great place mentally after that. The doubts, the pain, the trauma are all catching up to him. He's thinking, how can Central City or the whole world believe in the Flash? Iris saw that and surprised Barry with something. Henry came back to his son, giving him all the support he needs when he needed it the most. Henry still proved he cared about his son, and even gave him all the emotional support he can offer, giving Barry all the motivation to overcome the pain and trauma caused by Zoom to the best of his ability. See what I mean? There we go! His presence does help! He did not hinder Barry in any way. Quite the opposite, he uplifted him. He helped him overcome some deep psychological trauma caused by a demonic speed-hungry psychopath. Henry can still be an emotional backbone to Barry, just like, if not better than Joe and the rest of Team Flash. Barry and Henry both saved each other emotionally for 15 long years. When everyone believed the lies said about Henry, Barry never did. And Barry believing in him is all that he needed to keep going to be the best version of himself. And now Henry returned the favor. Despite what everyone in the world may believe about the Flash after what Zoom did, Henry still believes in his son. He never tells Barry to stop being the Flash after that. He never demotivates Barry by being an overconcerned parent. No, he gives his son the strength to keep moving forward. Just like Barry gave Henry the strength to keep moving forward even back when he was an 11-year-old. In the great words of George Lucas, it's like poetry. They rhyme. Barry sadly made the same mistake he made in season 1. He trusted a man pretending to be his friend, when in reality he was just using him. Jay, or Hunter Zolomon, their friend, was Zoom this whole time. Zoom was dying because he was injecting himself with velocity, a chemical that gives a person temporary access to the Speed Force. The man was genuinely obsessed with speed. He was injecting himself way too much, to the point he became sick. The only way to be cured is to steal the natural Speed Force inside of a speedster. Enter him getting what he wants and stealing Barry's speed. Not only did Barry get played yet again by another Psycho Speedster, but his speed is also not only gone, but it's been taken by that same Psycho Speedster. After this entire time with these abilities you never imagined having, you now have to go back to being a normal human being. To say that Barry was an emotional wreck is an understatement. Harrison Wells of Earth 2 is suggesting to recreate the accident that turned Barry into the Flash. He has a big decision to make. So Barry goes to the man he needs the most, his dad. He gets him up to speed on what is going on, how he no longer has his powers, and Henry is not on board with recreating that accident. I mean, let's be honest, Barry was struck by lightning with serious amounts of chemicals and dark matter entering his body. It's really not the sanest thing to do, and rightfully so. Henry is concerned for his son's safety. Even if he wasn't, he told Barry how proud he is of the man he has become. Powers or no powers. He asks Barry if he really needs powers to be the remarkable man he has become. After hearing how awful things have become, Henry finally does it. He comes back with Barry to Central City to stay for good. His presence is seriously needed after all the awful things Zoom has done, and seeing him back really makes you feel warm and fuzzy in your tummy. Harry is really adamant on recreating the accident so Barry can have his speed to stop Zoom. And as I said, Henry is really against it. They are, after all, bargaining with his son's safety on something that is not a guaranteed success. The first time it happened, Barry was in a coma for 9 months. This isn't an easy thing to gloss over, and Henry being concerned for his son's safety makes perfect sense. Some people around him just see him as the Flash, the guy with powers that they have to assist, but to others, he's also a person that they genuinely care about, and they don't think that powers are necessary for him to be a hero that they've known him to be for so long before getting these abilities. Barry chimes in on everyone arguing and says that this is his decision to make, no one else's, which is true. This is his body after all we're talking about. They can't force him to do any decision he is not certain of, and Barry needing time to come to a conclusion on what to do next makes sense. But Zoom and time don't really mix well. Zoom just slaughtered innocent police officers, and Barry was quite literally powerless to stop him. And seeing that made Barry realize how necessary it is for him to have his powers back. This is a man who has been the Flash for quite some time now, and if anything or anyone needs help, the Flash is always there to help. But the Flash was not there to save those innocent police officers. That would mess with your head to the point of agreeing to do something as insane as injecting yourself with chemicals, being hit with dark matter, and being hit by lightning. Barry is gone. Henry Allen, put yourself in his shoes. You just lost the only family you had. The only family you have ever known all this time. The son that never gave up on you. He lost all his reputation, his wife, his life, time that cannot be recovered, but he endured all of that because his son was always there to believe in him. But now, that son is gone. You are looking at a man who has lost everything. As a parent, you know the order of things. Your children are here to outlive you, not the other way around. This would be devastating for any father at this moment. The amount of pain Henry must be feeling cannot be imagined. His own flesh and blood was suffering right in front of him and he couldn't do anything about it. Henry is now empty. He has no reason to live. But in reality, we all know Barry did not die. He is simply stuck in the Speed Force. And we all know he will get out of there eventually. But in this moment, for everyone, Barry is gone. While the accident quote-unquote failed, both Jessie, the daughter of Earth 2 Harrison Wells, and Wally were hit by that dark matter. Wally woke up fine, but Jessie, not really. She is still unconscious. They need a doctor, and the only doctor that they have right now is Henry. He is still trying to accept the fact that Barry is gone. And now, will he save the daughter of the man who just caused the death of his son? Will he say no? No. Even though he lost everything, he still chooses to do the right thing. After all that this man or this man's face has taken from us, he still finds the strength to get up, face this world, and make the right choices. Henry Allen is truly a hero. We can all learn something from this great man. Cisco vibes the remains of Barry's suit, and they figure out that Barry is simply stuck in the Speed Force. After a long psychological therapy session inside the Speed Force, and the many events happening in the real world, Team Flash and the Speed Force get Barry back into the real world. With, you guessed it, his speed back. And the relief and happiness in Henry's face says it all. He got his Barry back. After that roller coaster of emotions, Henry reassures Barry that he is not leaving again. He is staying in Central City no matter what. After Barry regained his speed, he has this optimism that seems a little too much. He is way too confident. Confidence and optimism isn't a bad thing, but too much of anything, even if it's good, can hurt without you knowing it. It can really make you blind to the truth of what is happening. Barry really needs to be careful with everything that is happening. Let's not forget all the horrible things that Zoom has done, not only to the world, but to the Flash himself. And Henry is really concerned about his son, and tries to talk to him about it. And that really annoyed Barry. He thinks his dad has taken away something that he hasn't had for a while. Hope and optimism to be the best version of himself. And that is the first time we ever see Barry talk to his dad with an angry tone. He says, "You haven't been there long enough." And Barry immediately regretted it and apologized. And Henry says, "You're right, I haven't been here long enough. I couldn't teach you basic human needs a father would need to teach his son, like driving, for example. But he has done his best to know him in any way he can, and he does know him. He knows the hero that he is, and reassures him he isn't trying to take anything away from him. He is simply asking him to not be blinded by all this hope and optimism he has. He still needs to be careful, and everyone in Team Flash is concerned about Barry, and obviously his dad would be too. Barry could be reckless with all this optimism he has. He still needs people to remind him of being careful. Anyone could have replaced Henry in that scene, but Henry makes the most sense. He is the one that should tell Barry this. And the dynamic between Barry and Henry really made this scene hit even harder. The emotions that those two can bring out is always something special, as I keep saying. Team Flash finally got that W over Zoom. They took out all his minions he brought into Earth 1, and Zoom scurried away into Earth 2. It's finally over. Team Flash celebrates this victory, and things are finally looking great. The future has never looked brighter, and we live happily ever.
The story continues, Flash.
Dad?
It's poetic, returning to your childhood home.
Jay, don't do this. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Take me. Kill me.
No! You still won't believe me that you and I are the same.
Barry, look at me, son. Look at me.
So I'm gonna have to make you believe me.
Whatever happens, you have made me the happiest father. Dad?
This time, you're gonna watch your parent die just like I did.
No.
And this is
No.
what's gonna make you just like me.
Your mother and I love Jay! Dad, hey, look at me. Dad, don't leave, not again. Dad, come on. Hey, it's all right. No, Dad.
Yes, that made me cry a river when I first saw it as a 14-year-old. You would have thought the tragedy of Henry Allen would have ended after finally getting released from prison, but no, it continued. He lost his wife, his time that cannot be recovered, his reputation, and now his life. That scene is so well written and acted, I can't but give them a standing ovation. The scene that get me crying the most is easily Barry talking to his mom in her final moments, but this one is easily a close second. Barry obviously in the beginning starts begging Jay to not do this. He says, "Take me instead," and Henry screams no. It's pretty much a joke during this video, as I keep saying for countless times, father first, I myself do not matter. Amidst the craziness and chaotic nature of what is happening, Henry Allen knows he will die. He is not an idiot. Imagine being in that situation where you know you are a dying man. You pretty much can't do anything about it. He knows he can't escape this. His fate is sealed. He doesn't have much to do except emotional support. Just like that was all he could do in prison. He is literally imprisoned in the arms of Zoom, just like he was imprisoned in prison. He couldn't do much. He tells Barry, "You have made me the happiest father." And yeah, as I said during this video, without Barry, I surely think Henry would not have survived prison. So his words ring true in this moment. Your mother and I love you. As a dying man, always, father first. Whatever else comes later. He is trying to lessen the pain that Barry will feel after this, and that concludes the tragic life of my beloved Henry Allen. His death was felt immediately. The presence and emotional weight he brought was unmatched, and it will seriously be missed. The life of Henry Allen was that of tragedy, sadness, and despair. But through all of that, he still proved to be one of the most resilient men that world had to offer. He overcame that and chose to be the best version of himself for his son. All of this happened because of things he doesn't even understand. But that never really mattered to him. All that mattered was Barry. This show has my favorite version of Henry Allen because of how amazingly they used him. They used him perfectly when the show needed him. He was used as motivation for Barry to do what he needed to do. Even when Henry got out of prison, although he chose to leave, and I still don't get that, he still came back and chose to stay, still being that anchor for Barry to be the best version of the Flash. Henry Allen, the father first, I love you. The writers, John Wesley Shipp, thank you so much for some of the best scenes TV had to offer. His death had shockwaves that was the cause of so many huge events in this universe. Barry wouldn't have created Flashpoint by saving his mother, causing all the horrible events of Season 3. And I am oh so happy that the man in the Iron Mask imprisoned by Zoom turned out to be the doppelganger of Henry, but as the real Jay Garrick, the Flash of Earth 3. At least I get to see John Wesley Shipp still being that father figure for Barry that we love to see. And all that I mentioned is why the CW's Henry is my favorite version. I want to ask a question. Who is the most tragic version of Henry? I think objectively it has to be the pre-Flashpoint version. He really had no W's. He never tasted freedom like all the other versions of Henry, he simply died in prison. Henry there just suffered and died in prison. Nothing but L's. Because of that, he really is the most tragic one. A close second would be the CW's version. He actually did taste freedom. But just because he was free of prison didn't mean the pain was over. His son did return, but the trauma of seeing your own son get blown into nothingness is still something that he has to live with. And even after that, he was murdered in front of his son. His ending was not a happy one, but at least he did have a taste of freedom. The other versions, other than pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths, the New 52 Henry was freed from prison and continued on living into 2016's Rebirth. And the DCEU version, last we saw him, he was also freed. And that concludes this video. That was pretty much a love letter for one of my favorite characters in any Flash storyline. And the one that made that happen was the John Wesley Shipp version. After all, my first ever experience with the Flash was the show version. And after falling in love with the Flash, I fell into the rabbit hole of any Flash comic or any Flash media really. So yet again, John Wesley Shipp, the writers of the phenomenal first 2 seasons, thank you. We don't talk about what comes after Season 3. Special thanks to my troopers for being awesome members of the channel. Your support means more than you know. Thank you guys for watching and goodbye!